Hello fam, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Marina. I'm an immigrant cultural researcher, and on this channel I talk about South Asian culture, immigration, history, and similar topics with deep dives into the weird, hilarious, spicy, and messy realities of being South Asian. Have you ever had someone say, "Wow, your English is so good," and you're just there like, thanks? Or is it something liminal, like you barely have an accent, where did you learn English, or your English is better than mine? This is one of those sentences that is meant as a compliment, but it feels like a test that you didn't know you were taking. So in today's video, we're diving into why this happens and how to handle it without awkwardly smiling or nodding. So like many immigrants, I've heard this compliment more times than I can count. When I first moved to Australia, I'll admit I was kind of validated by it. But then the more I thought about it, it started to really get under my skin. And then it hit me. It's not just a personal annoyance, it is a linguistic power move. And this French guy had a theory about it. Language isn't just words, it's power. The way we speak isn't just about grammar, vocabulary, and diction. It's a sign of class, privilege, and status. In other words, English just isn't a language. It's social currency. And if you don't speak it right, or worse, if you speak it too well, people are going to start making assumptions. Now let's talk about why this happens. English didn't just show up in South Asia like an uninvited wedding guest. It arrived with colonialism, and like colonialism, it never really left. Before the British, Indian elites spoke Persian, Sanskrit, Urdu, but the British were like, nah, we're gonna need you to start using English now. The goal? To create brown Englishmen, people Indian enough to rule over the locals, but English enough to stay obedient. This phenomenon can further be explained by Homi Bhabha's concept of mimicry, that addresses how colonized peoples adopt the culture and behavior of their colonizers, especially in the context of language, dress, and manners. However, the mimicry is not always perfect. There's always something incomplete or distorted about the imitation. Bhabha calls it the almost same but not quite. The British colonizers didn't just bring tea, cricket, and bad weather to South Asia. They brought the language of power. Speaking English was the shortcut to getting ahead. Government jobs, fancy titles, access to all the good stuff. If you wanted to climb the social ladder, English was your golden ticket. But there was a catch. Mastering English wasn't enough to erase that you still weren't one of them. You could ace the Queen's English, but you could never quite join her at her tea party. English, once a tool of empowerment, became the marker of a social club that you could never really truly join. You might speak their language, but you're still the other trying to fit in. And that's why, when someone says, "Wow, your English is so good," it feels like the joke's on you. And let's not forget the cultural and racial boundaries marked by accents, intonations, and cultural references that become other ways of creating exclusion through language. This explains so much about why English is both a requirement and a barrier for immigrants. You speak it too little, you're excluded. You speak it too well, people get confused. So while English became this double-edged sword, empowering but also a constant reminder of who's in and who's out, what gets even trickier is how English looks within South Asia itself. Across the subcontinent, English takes on different shapes, accents, and flavors. South Asia doesn't just have English, it has many Englishes. There's Indian English, Pakistani English, Sri Lankan English, Bangladeshi English, and so on. And they all have their distinct vocab, rhythms, and rules and slang. But some Englishes tend to get more respect than others. The way you speak English can either elevate or alienate, depending on where you're from, who you're speaking to, and how proper your English is considered to be. First, English was forced on South Asians as the language of the elite. And then, just to keep things interesting, we decided to keep it that way. Except now, instead of colonizers judging our English, we do it to each other. Congratulations, colonizers, you may have left, but your linguistic hierarchy is still there sipping chai and judging people's accents. Now, even within South Asian communities, English proficiency has become a sort of a gatekeeping tool where the type of English spoken can lead to feelings of sharam or shame. Speak the wrong kind of English and suddenly you're not polished enough, not professional enough, not Western enough. But speak it too well and you're a wannabe. And it's not just about speaking well. We've basically created a class hierarchy for accents. British or American sounding English, elite, or even sexy. Neutral South Asian newscaster English, respectable. Heavy Desi accented English, uncool. This internal hierarchy can lead to individuals feeling ashamed of their natural accents, as they may be mocked or stigmatized, not just by Western or so-called native English speakers, but also within their own communities. This is why South Asian parents are so obsessed with proper English. I know this from experience. Growing up in a South Asian household, the emphasis on English was relentless. My parents, like many, believed that mastering English was the key to success. It was seen as the bridge to opportunity, to acceptance, and to a world that sometimes felt it was out of reach. Look, they weren't wrong in their thinking. But as we mastered English, something else was quietly slipping away. The rich, beautiful language of my heritage, Urdu. And sometimes I feel that that connection to my own language and its heritage is really missing in my life, inducing a different kind of sharam or guilt for being somewhat disconnected from my own language and roots. But here's the thing. While my parents were busy making sure that I spoke English like I was auditioning for a BBC newscaster, I started to wonder, who exactly owns English anyway? I mean, if I'm going to be judged for my accent, shouldn't someone be paying me royalties for all the proper English I've been dropping? If we're judged for our English, let's ask, who actually owns it? Bourdieu would argue that it's the people in power who decide what good English is. And that means they get to move the goalposts whenever they want. But here's where Homi Bhabha's theory of hybridity comes in. English isn't pure anymore. It's been stolen, repurposed, rebranded, and colonized back by everyone who speaks it. English was once the language of the colonizers, but now it's been transformed by people across the world, including us. We've blended it with our native languages, our accents, our culture. What's left is a hybrid version of English that belongs to everyone who speaks it. It's no longer just proper English, but a language that has been reshaped by us, giving it new meaning and a new kind of power. English is basically the bootleg Netflix of languages. Every region has a local version. Next time someone says, "Wow, your English is so good," hit them with, "Thanks, yours is pretty decent too," for someone who only speaks one language. If you've ever received backhanded compliments about your English or accent or pronunciation, please share your stories in the comments below. If you liked this video and would like to see similar deep dives into the weird, spicy, and awkward experience of being a hybrid South Asian, please consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts and comments on other topics you'd like me to discuss. Until next time, take care.